Hello and welcome back to Hollowponds Solo Sagas and another one of our how-to, my thoughts, spoken essays on solo role-playing and role-playing in general and other stuff in that sphere. So today what I wanted to speak to you about was, and you might have seen it from the thumbnail and various things, serving the story or approaching with a story mindset and a narrative mindset. Or I like to call it serving the story. And so there are several reasons why we do solo role-playing and why we solo role-play or role-play. So role-playing in its core essence is collaborative storytelling. And so there are various reasons why some people choose to play and we have various different types of players. You'll always do it if you read any of the books on being a DM or the DM's guide, they talk about the types of player. The types of player and the types of things that we like to do in playing. Sometimes we like to win. Sometimes we like that leveling up and getting magic items. And mostly we like to tell a story, I hope, which is why we're choosing this and we're not playing a board game or a computer game. We are coming up with creatively a story. And part of that is the choices we make serve our story. Sometimes we don't necessarily do the thing that we were going to do, and instead we think of serving the story. You'll often get that if you DM, as I have done for many years, and you have DMs in your party, in your collective, or at your table, you will find that they will approach the game slightly differently. And what I want to talk to you today is about the concept of serving the story. And again, I'll be referring down, I'll look down because I've got notes because it's one of these. I'm not just making it all up off the top of my head. I'm referring to some notes, not a script though. So what do I mean by serving the story? So what I mean by serving the story is it's the concept of prioritizing the narrative over the mechanical aspect. So to go a bit more, so it's the keeping the story realistic, the cohesion of the story, holding the story together rather than going for the mechanical benefits of things is basically what I mean by serving the story. You, instead of trying to optimize the mechanics and get the perfect dice roll, you're trying to craft an interesting or an emotionally invested or an intriguing story. A story, we serve the story. I mean, so story first is just a mode of play. It's fine, whatever your mode of play is fine. I'm just specifically talking story first. Because one of the things I was thinking about, whenever you do a YouTube video, what they advise you do is you think about who your audience is. The audience for my actual plays is easy. It's someone who wants to watch me play a game. But for these things, it's who am I talking to? Am I talking to a beginning player? Am I talking to this? I think for a lot of this is I'm not necessarily talking to a seasoned role player who's been role playing for years and years. What I'm talking to is maybe someone who's come from more board gaming or computer games or various other things where the mechanical aspect of the game is the core function of play, which is in quite a stark contrast to tabletop role-playing, TTRPGs, where the story is often the core, or should, in my mind, is the core focus of the game. The mechanics help the story rather than the story gives an excuse for the mechanics. So that's where I'm talking about when I'm saying serving the story. We're putting the story first. Part of that means that our dice rolls and our oracles serve our story rather than govern our story. So what sort of things do we look for to try and see if we're serving the story? What we're trying to look for is so we try to avoid metagaming when we serve the story. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we, as solo players, know things that the characters within our story don't necessarily know. We, as solo players, know things about the greater story than our hero may not know. And so we do not portray our hero in a way that they know things they don't know. Metagaming. We do not try to overly protect our hero to save the mechanics of our hero. Yes, we've invested time, which is fine, but we can fail forwards. We don't have to slaughter our hero we can have something else happen to our hero. But we allow failure and the flaws of our hero to drive our story rather than hold our story back. We serve our story. Part of that is also we have the rules versus the story, the mechanics versus the narrative. We don't allow the rules and the mechanics to govern our story. So we often had, I come from IT, I worked in IT for years. You shouldn't make a person and their process fit a piece of software. The piece of software should fit the person and the process. You make a piece of software to fit them, you don't make them fit the piece of software. You make the story be the primary. The rules fit the story shouldn't fit the rules. So if the rules aren't working and the dice don't work and it's not the story that you're telling, then don't do it. But don't be fearful of going in a random direction you weren't predicting. You're serving the story by exploring those different angles and exploring that emotional difference and all those difficulties. Keeping your story consistent is often also key. And I think this was one of the things I didn't like about Rifts personally, was there was no tonal consistency that I felt. It fluctuated too quickly and too fast. And personally, I didn't like that for my story. If you like that for your story, then ignore this piece of advice. But keeping your story tone consistent, decide up ahead, is this a comedy game? Is this a horror game? Where do I want to explore my story, my narrative within this game? It's almost like there's those guidelines, the safety guidelines that you'll read in all modern role-playing games, and it's a very good concept to make sure everybody at the table feels safe. You can do that for yourself. You can decide where you want your story to be for this and what sort of story you want to tell. And part of that is also telling the story means that you don't have to overly rely upon the story that is told by the random tables. This is where I'm going to branch into something else here, which I wasn't originally going to talk about and I decided not to, but I will do. Now there are some people, and it's fine to use AI as a companion for solo role-playing, but the problem then is the AI is interpreting where the story goes, and that's really, in my mind and my opinion, your job as the human storyteller. This is another thing. I'm going to leave this in. Normally I cut these rants out, but I'm going to leave this in. An AI cannot produce beautiful art. A human needs to see the art and say it's beautiful. In and of itself, the thing that is produced is not beautiful. A human needs to interpret that and say it's beautiful. Giving the interpretation to the AI when it comes to this creative process denies that creativity of you. You need to let your creativity drive the story, maintain that aspect, that spark that is within us, that spark of creative consciousness that is within us to guide the story, which means we don't rely upon random tables wholly. We don't fall down and need a dice roll. We can rely upon our own creative decisions. This is where I mean by serving the story. So why? so why? See, I'm going to leave that bit in. Normally I cut any time I talk about AI because my opinions on AI. So I have no problems with a lot of stuff that's produced by AI because I know it's me that decides it's good. As a human, I am the one who brings the creativity. The AI doesn't. The AI is randomly putting pixels together and producing a picture which may be good or bad, but I decide upon it as a human with my creative instinct. Why adopt a story first method? Why should we do that? Now there are lots of different aspects. I'm going to go a bit into mental health here. Now, focusing on story allows you to immerse into the narrative that you're telling. Now, you saw this a few times with me. I've done those bits in Starforge, and particularly at the end of the Electric State. Electric State is very much a narrative telling. Captain's Log is a narrative story, and allows you to have that narrative story. But electric state is also, I mean, it clouds itself in lots of rules, but really there's very, very little framework there. Electric state is a narrative story, and you can immerse yourself into it, and you can allow yourself to immerse into it. And there are various different aspects that are beneficial from doing that. So there has been research on various things when it comes to role playing, particularly around a certain fancy game of old, which is very much out of vogue. Although certain collective who made Daggerheart allegedly, have decided to go that direction. So those studies have shown that mental health recovery is enhanced with roleplay. Not just necessarily the roleplay we do, but just playing a different character, exploring a different way of doing things, exploring the alternative identities, and exploring how to overcome adversity in a narrative safe way. And this is where having our story come first gives us that, because we are guiding ourselves through the emotional exploration of our story. And we sometimes, if we hit that right flow and that right creative edge, we can release ourselves into that story. I got really tearful. I nearly cried, like full-blown emotional response at the end of the Electric State. If you go and watch Electric State, that last episode, my tearfulness is it's acting. It's acting because it's what I do, but it's allowing that emotion to build up in me and release it in that artificial situation by serving the story. I served the story by letting myself out and into the story. All gets very woo. I do apologise if you don't like it. It's very, well, I was never in the drama club, but it was very drama club. It also, story driven, enhances and allows empathy build and allows that creativity build to flow. That more mechanics driven, it doesn't really deny, but it doesn't encourage that. So if you allow the story to pull you forward and you allow yourself to flow into the story. Saw it a couple of episodes ago with my Daggerheart, where I just started making the keeper talk, and the keeper said some things in that voice, and I made it that way, and then he said, the fire defends the Sablewood. And I thought, well, why did I say that? I didn't plan to say that. And if it's defending the Sablewood, what does it defend the Sablewood from? If I hadn't let myself just flow into that character and say those words, I wouldn't have created that story opening that I could then go into. But a table or an AI can't give me that. I have to identify that and deliver that, and I do that by serving the story. It also means, when you've served the story, that when you do have a failure or a death, it gives it value. So one of the earliest things I played on the channel, way before I was planning to actually put any of these videos up, was Starforged. And our hero, Aya, went to explore an ancient relic. And not to give the game away, Aya died in a quite gruesome manner. And I felt weird guilt after that. I talked about it in the last session. I openly spoke about it. Weird guilt after that of basically Aya dying. I felt guilty for it, but I felt guilty for it because I had emotionally invested in the character and in the story and in the situation. Starfall, great system, need to play that again. And so you get the ability to do that by serving the story and investing in the story. So what other things can you get out of it with the creative fulfillment? So creative fulfillment, yes, you can get that out. You feel like you've created a story and you have made something that wasn't there before. The story that you tell, whether it's to a camera, whether it's to a voice recorder, whether you write it down or you just hold it in your head, didn't exist before you created it. Even if you feel that you are just copying a story that somebody else has done, you're not, because you are doing it. So it has an element of you in it. You are giving you to the story, and you have created a thing that didn't exist beforehand. There was no story that you made beforehand, and then you made the story and it exists. You've created a thing from nothing and made it and brought it into the world, and now it exists. There is a pleasure and an escapism and a creative expression and a self-exploration that comes from that process. And there are so many benefits that have been identified from that. We did the journaling where you have the creative writing for just 15 minutes a day has shown to have massive benefits for dealing with anxiety, dealing with self-confidence, dealing with various different aspects. Exploring those that nature of storytelling, that nature of adversary, dealing with adversary, has those benefits. And it comes from allowing yourself to release what holds you back from serving the story and serve that story. You don't have to do it in all the games you play. You don't have to do it in all of them, but I would strongly say pick one that you feel that affinity with and allow yourself to release into it. Allow yourself to release into that narrative. It will help build new neural pathways for allowing your creative expression to become easier. To start off with, it may be really confronting for you. You might really find it quite difficult to do. To allow the stuff to flow, you might feel that you start doing voices and you feel a bit weird and nervous. Just go with it. I tell you, like these days, out there in the world, I do funny voices all the time. Me and Mandy just break into it and we do it. And you don't care in the end. I mean, I know I've hit that age where people just stop caring anyway. But just allow yourself to serve the story and get the benefits out of that. So, how can I give you some tips to stay true to serving the story? You will often hear me say, what is the most interesting thing to happen here? So when you begin to create we do our loop, our solo play loop. It's the same thing with all TTRPGs. All role-playing games have this, but it just becomes more evident for solo play because there aren't the other people there. And that is the scene. We loop. We have a solo play loop. Set a scene, ask some questions, resolve the questions, resolve the scene, loop back, set a scene. When you set the scene, truly set the scene, think of it in your head and think to yourself, what is the most interesting thing that could happen here? When you're attempting to do something, and you'll see me do it as well, think about what and you'll see so many times I will go through these scene setting processes saying, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. Now, if this happens, we'll do this. And then that never even bloody happens. And I've just done this whole scene setting, but because I've done that creative exploration, I have created a parallel universe, basically. When the thing succeeded, I have created this whole branch of reality where something succeeded, where it didn't in my branch. And so I go a different way. But I've explored all of these narrative, all these story-based things to find the most interesting outcome possible. So ask yourself, what is the most interesting outcome for the story? Not what's the best advantage for your character? What's the best advantage for the system? How can I get the best magic item? What is the most interesting outcome to this story? Ask yourself that question. If something fails and it doesn't drive your story off a cliff, accept that failure and build it into your story. Fail forwards. I say that all the time as well. It's in all the game, guys. It's in all of it doesn't have to be solo. TTRPGs, fail forwards. Dungeon masters, GMs, referees, keepers. Don't block off your players because they failed a dice roll. Fail forwards. Make them wake up tied up in the bottom of a garage. Make them find a different type of clue. Make them beg and scrape for something. Fail forwards with your rolls. Don't block yourself off. Fail forwards. Propel that character development forwards. Make sure you track your plot points. That helps with serving the story. Tracking plot points, tracking character motivations, tracking how the world builds. Right. Your journal doesn't have to be a work of art. Another thing, the people you often see on these channels, they are artists, they are character actors, they are whatever. You don't have to be that. You just have to embrace your own humanity, which is creativity. We as humans have had to be creative to get to where we are. If we weren't creative, we would have never got to where we were. The creative spark within the human being is what makes the things around us. And we are all capable of this. We are all capable of storytelling. Storytelling is a key aspect of humanity. The telling of stories is what makes us human. We all love stories. It's built into us. We love telling stories. Embrace those aspects. Tell the interesting story. You don't have to get all the tokens. It's not he who dies with the most stuff wins. It's he who told the best story and had the most interesting life wins. Tell the story, serve the story. Decide on your theme early is another thing, and I will often do that, and it's the reason why, like I said, Rifts didn't work for me. Decide on your setting. Is it going to be like Good Society, where basically it was Bridgerton? I'd never seen Bridgerton up until that point, but clearly I'd seen enough Jane Eyre and Jane Austen. Jane Austen? Whatever. Emma, Sense and Sensibility. I've watched all of them. I love them. All the BBC adaptations. I've watched them all, and that's what was in my head. I'd set the scene. Grimdark, set the scene. Rifts, I was doing Fallout. I didn't realise until I decided to stop. I was basically playing Fallout. Put it in your head and have that theme, and based on that story. You can base it on a TV series or a film you've seen or a book you've read. I'm going to do, so October is going to be Zombie Month, and I am going to do a series of stories. I contacted Keith C. Blackmore and I asked, could I use Mountain Man? Sadly, somebody else is using Mountain Man for a game, but it doesn't mean that I can't have that in my head when I'm playing it. I'm going to try playing it and I'm going to have it in my head because you can't license the IP in my head. I probably should cut that bit out though. So set a theme and follow the theme. And when a random roll doesn't fit the flow, give yourself permission to just follow a different way. You'll see me do that all the time as well. I'll roll something and go, no, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit, so we'll roll again. Or, oh, hold on, that doesn't fit, but I've thought of something that we will do and we'll follow that pathway. Give yourself permission to do that stuff there. And I think that wraps it up. So basically what I'm hoping to give you the impetus to do is to create some really deep, immersive, creative stories and reap the rewards from them. The mental health rewards, the joy, the creating that richness, deciding, allegedly, I've been watching videos over the weekend, allegedly AI is going to take all of the office jobs. If you've got an office job like I used to have, find something else to do. Write stories. But it's not going to take, no matter what anyone can say, it is not going to take the creative. If you write factually based books, maybe yes. Creatively, no, because we decide what is creatively good. We don't, it's just throwing words out there. We're the ones who read it and go, oh, that's good. We look at the picture and go, oh, that's good. Explore writing stories. Write some stories. Take this creativity and write some stories. I know lots of you do. I know lots of you do write and creatively write things. And I would say, I would applaud you beyond all things and say, do more. So following this hopefully gives you deeper immersive, creative fulfillment, mental health benefits, allows you to create those rich narratives, and I would encourage you wholeheartedly to put your story first. Story first, serve the story. Hopefully that helped. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much for being a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, do consider subscribing. If you did like this, do hit that thumbs up. I don't often say that. If you'd like to stick stuff in the comments, that lets the algorithm know that everybody loves me. Thank you so much to the Adventurers Guild for all your support. If you'd like to support the channel, you could join the YouTube membership, which is the Adventurers Guild. The higher tier, the early doors tier, gets early access to the videos and gets some additional stuff behind the scenes. When I get to Belgium, I will be endeavouring to produce more of that. You can also support by purchasing any of my books off Drive-Thru RPG, or by joining the Patreon, that the link is probably in the description, which gives you early access to the trifolds. This will be also put into a trifold at some point and released, probably at the same time as this video, but I haven't written that trifold yet. So I need to work on that before this comes out. Otherwise I'll be holding it up and showing you. And I think that's that. There was lots of gaps there because I was thinking of what to say next and I can't think of anything else. So instead I'll say, see ya. Good luck creating stories.